First things first, we are officially on the clock. Heisman winner Matt Leinart stops by to tell us what we need to know about this crop of quarterbacks. Speaking of QBs, Patriots have themselves a decision to make. Are we right, Wilds? Who should start under center week 1? And the Sixers are getting Joel Embiid back this weekend. Perhaps some movement out east. Good Thursday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wilds. What do you think, Nick? Embiid's missed time. Can he still win the MVP?
He's alive, but it's not likely. But most importantly, Brandon, your Nets in first place by themselves for the first time in 8 years. First place by themselves, first time in 8 years. It's sincere.
Let's go.
Sincere, by themselves.
I told you so.
I don't feel like
It'll never get better than this.
Brandon, it doesn't feel sincere.
This is as good as it gets for them.
It does not feel sincere.
It's all downhill from
All right,
here.
let's start with some football, though.
Right.
We got some news to report. Starting up in Seattle, where the Seahawks shored up their offense yesterday. Not with more O-line help for Russ. Don't be ridiculous. They extended wide receiver Tyler Lockett. 4 years, $69 million. Lockett's been one of Russ's top targets the last couple of years. I know it, you know it, Russ knows it. Took to Twitter, as he does, with this tweet. Homie, let's go. You deserve it all. Love you, bro. Brandon, I'm going to start with you here. We've heard Russ cheerlead all offseason long. How pumped should he be for this upcoming Seahawks season? This video.
He should be pumped. I mean, it's a blessing to be in the National Football League. I mean, it's one of the greatest things you can do is score a touchdown, make a sack in front of 70,000 cheering fans. You got a couple million tuning in live. Yeah, he should be pumped. This is not about Russell Wilson, though. This is about Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll looked at his Wikipedia. He said, man, I'm 69 years of age. I've been coaching since I was, almost damn near 19 years old. This is going into my 48th year as a coach. I've won 2 national championships. I won Super Bowl 48. If I want to do it again, I got to hand Russell Wilson the pots, the pans, the skill, everything. He's going to let Russell Wilson cook. So this whole conversation around Russell Wilson and why is he cheering on his teammates? He just asked for a trade. He's looking at Chicago, but all of a sudden he's liking this, he's liking that. Well, that's what he's supposed to do because he made himself heard. He sat at the table with Pete Carroll and said, like, Coach, let me cook. Let me guide us. Like, I understand you want to play great defense. I understand you want to run the ball. I want to do that too. But the best way to the Super Bowl and the best way to win, Nick, is through me. And we know that. So I am a little bit surprised that it dramatically changed so quickly. I didn't think that these two were going to be able to sit at the table and compromise. And really looking at Coach Pete Carroll, because Coach Pete Carroll, he's a super coach. He's super successful. And the way he has done things in the past have worked. He's one of the most studied leaders in all of business, not just sports. So for him to sit down and compromise and say, you know what, I know I'm 69. I've been doing it for 48 years. Let me listen to Russ. Let me listen to my guys. So I'm excited for Russ. I'm excited for the Seattle Seahawks.
Listen, Tyler Lockett's a really good player. He's also a really good player that was already on the Seahawks, that was not even a free agent. This is a contract extension with a year left on his deal. I am not as certain as Brandon is that Pete Carroll has done any compromising. I think we're going to see how the game is called and how the plays are called once the season starts. But bringing back Tyler Lockett, who, again, was already under contract for this upcoming season, to me is not the sign of compromise. To me, what is instructive here is I think Russell Wilson or someone close to Russell Wilson got through to him, hey, man, I know it's not perfect here, but think about the places you asked to go to and what the problems would have been like there. Dallas was, I think, actually would have been a great fit, but it was also the least likely of all the places because they would have had to trade Dak. If the Saints had traded for Russell Wilson, guess what? They'd have used all their draft picks to trade for him, and they don't have cap dollars for the next 3 years, essentially, in New Orleans. They would not have been able to improve the team. Chicago is not replete with offensive talent, and the Raiders they've had what, one winning season in nearly 20 years. So I don't look at this offseason, Wilds, as Pete Carroll all of a sudden blinking and doing everything Russell Wilson wanted. To my eye, the only major move they made that Russell Wilson wanted was the Gabe Jackson edition. I just think it's Pete Carroll saying, listen, hey, it could be a lot worse. We'll bring your guys back. And I will, to Brandon's point as far as compromising, I will listen to you more on game plan things. But I don't look at that. I don't think the Seahawks were all that threatened, it would appear, by Russell Wilson's pseudo-trade demand, because I don't think they've done a ton of things to show they were threatened.
I agree. And Brandon, I'm going to throw it to you here. Are you planning on having Russ on the podcast? Is that why we haven't heard from Russell Wilson? Because I don't want to be a psychic. I don't want to read tarot cards. I don't want to have a crystal ball. I don't want to decipher tweets. I just want him to say, I'm excited about this year. I'm on the Seahawks. I know I had a wish list of teams I was going to go to, but throw that in the garbage. I don't even care if it's the truth necessarily, because here's what he can say. I'll read this verbatim. I'm just focused on this season and being in the right mental, emotional frame of mind to go out there and perform at the highest level. Sounds perfect. You know who said that? Tom Brady on the Greg Hill Show once he put his house up for sale. And he said, you know what? I'm focused on this year. What happens, happens. We haven't heard any of that. So I know we're going to act like, oh, all is well. Tyler Lockett got an extension. Let's go. I want to just hear something plain and simple. I'm a Seahawk. I'm excited for the year, and I haven't heard it yet. No,
because of Nick's point, right? We're still early in the offseason. We haven't even gotten to OTAs. Hell, we don't even know if we're going to have OTAs, excuse me. It's still fresh. They're having these conversations. They had conversations. They're going to continue to have conversations. They're talking about what they're going to do in the draft to bolster this offensive line. Russell Wilson sitting down with his new offensive coordinator, putting together, okay, what are we thinking? What do you like, Russ? Here's what we did well over in LA. That's what's happening right now. And Nick, I want to push back on you when you talk about Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. Like Pete Carroll hasn't done nothing. I was there for a year. I'm telling you, his secret sauce, and I just said leadership, right? He is one of the most studied leaders in all of business. Why? Because when you walk in that building, it's almost like the Google approach, the Facebook approach. There's no offices. Everybody's all on the same floor. You can go, you have access to the CEO, the CMO, whoever you want. And he wants chemistry. He wants continuity. So if you got your number one guy, you got the face of the franchise walking in every single day, not happy, and everybody knowing that, Pete Carroll is not going to be happy with that. Pete Carroll's all about everybody working together. I just yesterday used one of his tactics leading my team, talking about Tell the Truth Wednesdays. Who did I get that from? Pete Carroll. Tell the Truth Wednesday. He does that every single Monday. They call it Tell the Truth Monday. You come in after a game, get whatever you have to get off of your chest. You don't think Dwayne Brown's going to stand up and say, man, what's going on with you and Russell Wilson? This ain't what we've done the last 3 years. So I got to push back on you because I truly believe Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll are having constructive conversations and they're getting on the same page.
Well, I don't, to be clear, I don't doubt that those conversations are happening, and you obviously would know better than me. I guess what I doubt is that Russell Wilson is winning the argument, so to speak, because we haven't seen Seattle make any type of big splashy move that I think it would be like, oh, they were a little unsettled by what Russ said. That's why they went out and got player X. That's why they went out and made this move. Maybe they still will, or maybe in those conversations, what Carroll has communicated is, listen, we don't need to make any big moves, but I will empower you more on the offensive side. But I would be remiss, before we break, Jenna, listen, once upon a time, we had executives at this network, or at a network, it was this network, talk to Brandon about whether or not he should wear his hair down or up. I'm team wear your hair down. Brandon's team wear the hair up. Those same executives better call Kevin Wildes in the next couple minutes and say, hey, buddy, you can't have a pencil in your hair. You got pencils sticking out of your hair. The whole audience is thinking it. I'm thinking it. Or other side of your head, buddy. There you go. Now you're better. Now you're back. We couldn't listen to your analysis because you had something sticking out the side of your head.
Matt Patricia.
Jenna was thinking it. Brandon was thinking it.
Matt
There we
Patricia.
go. He was doing the Matt Patricia.
I just
now we're
assumed
better.
he was,
Now we're back.
He was doing the whole Matt Patricia. Nobody can take you seriously, Wilds, at all. But can I just argue quickly that I would say that while you didn't get the full gung-ho thrust of Russell Wilson saying, I want to be here, I like that tweet to Tyler Lockett. I thought it was a little like, hey, let's go. I'm on board. So maybe it was just a part of it. We got to talk some Fox Super 6. They're giving away more cash in college basketball this weekend. Download the app, answer 6 questions for your shot at a $1,000 guaranteed prize. As always, it is free to play, so get on it. Take a break. Much more First Things First right after this. Time to make the call. Here we go. Kyle Pitts put on a show at Florida's Pro Day yesterday. The tight end lit it up. He's in the mix to be the first non-quarterback taken in the draft. But Brandon, make the call. Which non-QB will have the most immediate impact this season?
Let's stay right here with a pass catcher. I'm going to go to the wide receiver position. This guy, it's not Jamar Chase. I think he has the most upside. He's a big receiver. He'll probably be first, not Waddle. But I'm going with the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm going with Devontae Smith. He's NFL ready right now. And the reason why I say that, because when you go from college to the NFL, the biggest difference is, can you beat one-on-one? Can you beat bump and run coverage? This dude is shifty. This dude can do it all. So I'm going to go with this kid because I truly believe he can go compete with the Stephon Gilmores. He can go compete with the Jalen Ramseys, because you got to see him in that box. And we're talking about mano to mano. And that's who I'm going with, this kid right here. He's NFL ready.
So I took a slightly different tact for this question because I didn't want to pick a receiver because it's so dependent on what quarterback they get paired up with. I also wanted to pick someone who I thought had a chance to go to a good team and be in big games. So someone that's not going to be a high first-round pick. So I went Gregory Rousseau, the defensive end out of Miami. Wow. If you don't know who he is, he opted out of last year. Ooh. But in 2019, he had 15 and a half sacks and 19 and a half tackles for loss. So that is 35 plays made behind the line of scrimmage. Additionally, he's 6'7" and has only been playing the defensive end position for a couple of years after playing safety and receiver in high school. So it feels like the potential's off the charts. The production was off the charts in his 1 year playing, and because he allegedly didn't have a great pro day, he's falling down draft boards to where you could see a really good team get him in the 20s, maybe even those Seattle Seahawks we're talking about that need more of a pass rush. So I went Gregory Rousseau, who I think is going to play in big games and make an immediate impact.
Free life tip here. Subject, karaoke. Here's how you can be great at karaoke. Try your absolute hardest, like you're at Madison Square Garden with a whole arena full of people. You got to go the whole way. People are like, that was awesome. That's what Kyle Pitts did. After his pro day, here's what he said. At the end of the day, with all the preparation and the years, I feel like I will be the best to ever do it. Not I'm the best tight end in the draft class. Not that I'm going to be one of the best in the NFL. I will be the best tight end ever. So look, if you're going to pass on a draft prospect, you better watch out if you pass on Kyle Pitts and he ends up being fantastic. He's going to be like, hey, I told you I was going to be the best tight end ever. And you guys let me slip to 7. Dumb move on your part. I spelled it out for you right in my pro day.
Wow.
On to San Francisco. Jimmy G and the Niners are in for it this season. George Kittle said the NFC West is the toughest division out there. Brandon, make the call. Which team will be the best in the NFC West?
Oh, I'll make the call, Jenna. Here we go. So my head is rational. My gut, our gut, can be irrational at times. My head that is rational says the Rams. The Rams 2018, they ran the ball well. Their quarterback played well. Defensively, they weren't like great statistically, but they turned the ball over. I think we're going to see a Rams team that is sensational this year. But I'm going to go with my gut. And my gut says, go with the best quarterback in the division. That's Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. Their issue, Nick and Wilds, was defensively, they do the same thing over and over again. We saw them at the beginning of the season. They weren't great. Teams were scorching them. But then the second half of the season, what did we see? They start bringing quarterback blitzes. They start doing things differently, things they've never done in 9 years. So I got to say they're going to continue that trend, mixing it up and tweaking their defense. Their defense, they don't have a lot of studs, but they can be a mid-tier defense. And now on offensive side, you're giving Russell Wilson the pot. You're giving him the pan. You're giving him the skillet. You're giving him all the utensils he needs. So if they bolster that offensive line, and then they go and they get one more playmaker, which they got Everett already. They already got DK Metcalf. They just signed Tyler Lockett back. I truly believe that this team can be right where they need to be, right where they want to be. So I'm going with my gut. I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks.
All right, before I give my answer, I have to say something about Brandon and something about Wild. Brandon, that answer, you told us what your head was saying, and then I think you lied to us. I don't think that was your gut speaking. I think it was about 9 inches north. I think it was your heart speaking. I think that was the old Brandon Marshall heart. I think that was rooting for Russ, rooting for Tell the Truth Mondays and all of that. To my friend Kevin Wilds, America, no one is going to give on sports television all day better advice than what Wilds gave you about karaoke. What he said about karaoke, write it down, laminate it, put it in your wallet. It's 100% accurate. When the world opens up again, you want to be a karaoke star. You can't mail it in like, you have to act like you are Billy Joel on a one-night-only performance. Yes. That's what you've got to do. Wilds is 100% accurate. Now, to answer the question, is the Rams. Everything Brandon said about his head, that's my head as well. It's the Rams. They all of a sudden have a quarterback with life-size hands to go along with the great defense and the great coach. The Rams should be the favorite in the division, Wilds. We don't have to go much further than that.
Thank you. All right. I'm going with the Cardinals with an asterisk because I want the Cardinals to succeed. I like DeAndre Hopkins. I like Kyler. You got J.J. Watt. But I am also rooting for my buddy Nick, who has made a prediction that it's been gestating for a year now that the Cardinals might flame out and our buddy Cliff Kingsbury, former Patriot draft pick, could be on the way out. So I'm rooting for the Cardinals, but I'm also rooting for you, Nick, so I feel like I'm in a real bind.
Well, I appreciate that. I wouldn't mind being wrong about the Cardinals because I like Kyler and I like Nuke and I like a lot of their players. What I find most interesting about our answers is none of us said the Niners. The Niners, who have an excellent coach, a defense that's going to be back, you would assume healthy, and traded up in the draft seemingly to go get their quarterback. None of us seem to think the Niners, who made the Super Bowl 2 years ago, are even the favorites in the division. I think it's an interesting statement on what, as a collective, we must think of Jimmy Garoppolo. Except for Wilds, who loves Jimmy G and wants him to quarterback his team. It's a little confusing, but the fact that nobody said the Niners is odd to me.
Quarterback.
He's got to dislike him enough for them to get off him so that they can now take him. Hey, we got to talk some baseball because we can. Happy opening day, everyone. Mets very happy today. They finally closed the deal with their all-star shortstop, Francisco Lindor. 10 years, $341 million. I want that deal. Probably not going to happen for me. Great slate of games Saturday on FS1 if you're looking for some weekend baseball plans. Brandon, make the call. Who will be the most exciting player in baseball this season?
Ooh, hey, guys, trivia. Who's this? What's this? Who does this in the box? What is this called? Who does that? Who does the shuffle? Y'all heard of the Soto shuffle? Juan Soto. Come on now. This dude is phenomenal. He's only 22.
I thought it was Nadal.
Listen, you haven't seen it? The Soto shuffle? You don't understand what he's doing. I'm so glad he doesn't do the crotch grab anymore. He's trying to ascend to be a leader. He doesn't want the kids watching to mimic what he's done when he first entered into the majors. But look, this dude batted .351 last year, on pace to hit 45 homers if the season wasn't ended shortly. I love what he's doing. The ball doesn't come off the bat better than anybody else in the majors. This dude is the answer.
I can be fast here. I'm just going to go with the guy who's been the most exciting player in baseball for 3 straight years, Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts. He wins the Gold Glove every year. He wins the Silver Slugger every year. He comes in top 3 MVP voting every year. He's a World Series champion. Now I say Mookie Betts, Wilds.
Okay, I'm going all off the board here. I'm going to go with Theo Epstein. Here's why. Worked for the Red Sox, won a World Series, got the Cubs a World Series. Now he's working for Major League Baseball as an on-field consultant, which means he's making recommendations how to make baseball better. So we've seen a few experiments happening. Like in the minor leagues, they're banning the shift. We got the pitch clock going, and the bases are a little bit bigger to encourage more stealing. Now, in a recent podcast, I think it was with Jason Stark, he's like, maybe we look at changing the dimensions of the field. Maybe we go from 60 feet 6 inches to 61 feet 6 inches. See what would happen. Have, reduce strikeouts, more balls in play. So I'm very interested to see what Theo is going to do and how baseball could fundamentally change starting this year with what he's
I like it.
I like it as well. He's not a player,
Minnesota
but it's
shuffle.
very fascinating.
No, he's not.
a player.
He kind of answered the question, but didn't totally answer the question. Should we take a ride down memory lane? Come with me. Brandon,
answer.
this is you, buddy. Look at you.
What?
Look at you,
What?
Brody, back in 2006 at
Man,
UCF.
can I get lean like that again?
Now,
Oh, my goodness.
now take a listen to young Brandon on what he was bringing to the league.
Most of the guys just want to see me run and see what the 40 is like, so I think I kind of proved to them that I can move a little bit for a big guy.
The Universal Championship triple threat has reshaped WrestleMania, and Edge is more dangerous than ever. But how will Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan retaliate? It's an all-new Friday Night SmackDown, live at 8 Eastern tomorrow night on Fox.
Back here talking hoops now. Sixers sitting pretty this morning, just a half a game behind the Nets. They'll be even prettier come Saturday when they get Joel Embiid back. The former frontrunner for MVP expected back after missing 16 games. A lot going on here. We got Chris Broussard with us to help unpack. Start with you, Broussard. Do you think Embiid's return thrusts him right back into that MVP picture?
I don't. I don't want to rule it out 100%, but he's missed 16 games in the 40 years that the media has been voting for the award. No one's ever won MVP missing that many games, and that's in 82-game seasons. The most is Allen Iverson with 11 games in an 82-game season. Embiid's missed 16 in 72. And let's not be fooled. Because of probably necessary load management going forward, he's going to miss a few more games, even if he stays healthy. So he's probably out of it. Nick brought this up a couple weeks ago, and he was right. This is an odd year. It's going to be an odd year for the MVP winner. If Embiid's out because he missed too many games, LeBron's probably out because he missed too many games. Now James Harden got hurt last night with a hamstring, and we'll see how many games he's missed. But obviously, some guys are like Nick, some voters holding Houston against him. So now you start looking at a guy like Chris Paul. I know Nick likes Chris Paul. He's averaging fewer than 16 points a game. He's 5th in the league in assists, and he's 40th in PER. I know Wiles likes the PER. He's 40th. So I don't, and then you can argue that Devin Booker, it's arguable who's their MVP. I think now a Nikola Jokic, who a lot of people already have first, they're the 5th seed in Denver, but this could be the year that a guy that low makes it because his numbers are through the roof. He's almost averaging a triple-double, and his PER, according to ESPN, is on pace to be the best ever by a mile. So I think Nikola Jokic, or even maybe a Dame Lillard, could sneak into this because some other guys are injured.
Well, so Chris, let's stay right here. I have James Harden, the beard, and then I have Embiid. I have Jokic right there, and then we also have LeBron James. We don't know when LeBron James is coming back. That's how I have it. So here's the deal. When you look at James Harden, what he's doing, to me, he's the clear-cut favorite because he could potentially end this season averaging a triple-double after the All-Star break. So that's why I have James Harden there. A couple weeks ago, you shared your criteria. You've been voting for the MVP for years now. And one of the things that you talked about was a historical precedent, right? So now you look at Embiid. Embiid is a 7-footer, 52, 42, 86. That's his percentages. So when you think about that, Chris, I'm pushing back on you and I'm asking you the question, does that not lean into part of your criteria when you talk about historical precedent? This is Olajuwon, this is damn KD, this is damn Kyrie Irving wrapped in one the way he was doing it before he got hurt. So does this not lean into your historical precedent criteria?
I mean,
well, you just said it's going to be an odd year. You just said it's an odd year.
That's why I said I wouldn't write him off 100%, but he's going to miss at least 20 games. That's just too many. And precedent, Jokic, like I said, according to ESPN, now there's different PER metrics, but no one's ever had a PER above 32 or even 32, I don't believe, in a season. Jokic's PER right now is above 34. So that's a precedent right there.
Listen, and so to the point on Jokic, the historical precedent that hurts him is the Nuggets are still 5th in the West. I'm going to add 2 names to the list. One of them that you mentioned briefly, Broussard, is in Damian Lillard. They got the same record as the Nuggets. And I also think Luka, if you look, at last check, Luka's 29, 8, and 9 and plays almost every night. And I think his team's going to be surging near the end of the year. But when Embiid got hurt, I threw him out. And by the way, the day before Embiid got hurt, I had said he had overtaken LeBron as the MVP leader. But I threw him out because it's like, okay, he's going to miss too many games. But no matter who the MVP is, and this is the point I was making a couple weeks ago, and the point that Broussard reiterated, it's going to be something we've never seen before, except for one guy, and I'll tell you who that guy is in a minute. Because LeBron's going to miss a bunch of games. Embiid's already missed a bunch of games. So that's the precedent there. Right now, it looks like Jokic and Dame and Luka, their team's not going to be a top 2 or 3 seed, as it always has been since the media's been voting, except for Russell Westbrook's MVP year. And James Harden, we've never had an MVP play for 2 different teams. There's only one guy who it's like, wait, he plays every night. His numbers are unbelievable. The team's a top 3 seed, and it's Giannis. Giannis is the only guy that in a typical season would check every single box. But with Giannis, what is happening is we are holding against him the playoff flameouts and the fact that it's not new. And so Wild's like, I do think that Embiid is still very alive. Because I think the Sixers are going to finish with the 1 seed. He didn't miss as much time as I thought he was, and his numbers are going to be out of this world. But it is going to be, can you win MVP playing 52 games out of 72, or is Giannis going to win a 3rd straight? There's going to be 8 guys you can make a legitimate case for.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it to Broussard since you've got your vote, Broussard. Let's say the Sixers don't win, right? Let's say the Bucks come in 1st place. Are you going to say, I don't know, I voted for this guy back-to-back years. I don't want to put him in like the Larry Bird category right now, 3 consecutive MVPs. Is that fair to Giannis if he brings the Bucks to the number 1 seed? He's playing astronomically well. Everybody else has a shot against him. And his shot is that he played too well the last 2 years. So would you give Giannis your vote if Bucks were number 1?
It won't be just based on the number 1 seed, but he's in the running. I'm not ruling him out. And the thing is, too, Wiles, if you watch him over the last couple weeks, he's had some subpar games, a nice string of subpar games, in fact. Even last night, he was good, but he wasn't fantastic. So, that's working against Giannis, too. But if he gets back to doing what he was doing before, and they win the number 1 seed, Nick was right, because of all these strange happenings, he's in the running. There's no doubt. But I think Jokic is ahead of him.
I think Jokic right now is the favorite, even though they're the 5 seed. I just want to say one thing to Brandon about Harden. I have never said that Harden is ineligible to win it. My stance on Harden is, because of that, the Houston thing happened this year, and we're talking about value. If it's, if it's a 400-meter race at the 50-meter mark, not only was he behind the leaders, he was actually behind the starting line. He had started from from a deficit. He has played so well during KD's absence, and they've won so much that now he is in that upper group. I don't have him the leader that you have him as, but if he continues to be 44, 10, and 8 on, once a week, then you have to, at some point, he is eligible in my eyes, Brandon, to overcome what happened in Houston. So I just wanted to be clear. I'm not saying he's not allowed to win it. I'm saying that he has to overcome what he did in Houston. It hasn't been, as Broussard said, like a congeniality contest.
I do have him as the leader, Brandon. I do have Harden as my leader. I'm just concerned about him missing too many games with this hamstring if that happens.
Okay, well, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if he's going to miss a week. We don't know if he's going to miss 2 weeks. We don't know that. But what you just said, Nick, Luka came into the season. You just put Luka into the conversation. Yeah. He came into the season out of shape. He came into the season, he was 2 for 24 from the three-point line, okay? And then we're looking at Giannis. Giannis and the Bucks, look how they started. So I just don't think that should be part of the criteria when we look at MVP. You can start off slow. That's fine. But how do you finish the season? Where are you at, as far as mid-season? And that's, to me, that's why I have James Harden here. I have Embiid, and then you could throw in the other guys.
Which is why, just quickly, Jenna, that's why I think I have Luka and Harden neck and neck. Not neck and neck for one, but for very different reasons. The first few weeks of their season were bad, and they both had to overcome it. And to me, they've both been on that trajectory, Jenna.
But, Broussard, you make a good point. You got to watch out for Harden's hamstring and see if he does miss time with that. Let's talk about Kevin Durant.
Because they're going to be cautious.
Kevin Durant was engaged. Yeah, of course. Kevin Durant was engaged in a disturbing social media war with media personality Michael Rappaport. Rappaport sharing some private direct messages from KD with his followers in which KD used homophobic and misogynistic slurs in a heated back and forth. Nick, what did you make of all this?
What I make of all this is it is incomprehensible to me that we would do a topic. Aaron Rodgers is in Twitter war with DL Hughley. Yet this is what the situation we find ourselves in with Kevin Durant. Like, it's not surprising. Nobody's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And because KD evidently doesn't have this person in his life, I know KD's not fond of me, but I got nothing against him. I want to give him some free advice. Hey, man, you can ignore these people. And by these people, let me be more specific. You can ignore this person. You want to know how I know? Because I've been ignoring this person for 4 years. Show the tweets. Michael Rappaport has been coming for me for years. That's Michael Rappaport waving a broom in my face in person. I never responded. Show the next tweet. Here's Michael Rappaport sending me photoshops of Kawhi with LeBron and KD. How'd that one age for you, Michael? Show the next tweet. Here's Michael Rappaport really interested in my ability to dribble a basketball with my left hand. Show the next tweet. Michael Rappaport following up on the can I dribble with my left hand. Show the next tweet. Michael Rappaport asking if I can make 5 free throws in a row. Guess what, KD? You know how many times I've responded to him? Not never. Because he's a clout-chasing troll. Ignore him. Hey, how is it possible that at 32 years old you haven't figured this out? How is it possible that at 32 years old, Broussard, let me ask you a question, buddy. You ever have people be mean to you on the internet? You ever have people, even people with a platform, mock you for things, come after you? You ever have some people say, you know what, Chris Broussard, he's not my favorite, and I'm going to come after him? How many of them have you said, meet me on this corner at 10 a.m. to fight? Nobody. You know why? Because you're an adult. Like, I don't understand how KD gets online and is a 15-year-old boy. I don't get it. And somebody's got to talk to him. Like, am I crazy here, Broussard?
No, look, these are great points. Full disclosure, I communicated with Michael Rappaport about this yesterday, and I'm friends with Rappaport. And I asked him, my first thing was, is this real? Because remember, KD tweeted at some random person that he and Rappaport talk like this all the time. They even talk crazier to each other, and Mike just had a bad day. So he apologized. He said, my bad, Mike. Rappaport told me, oh, no, this is real. All that stuff about we talk about this way all the time, that's not the truth. And he said that what really bothered him was KD threatening him, like you said, challenging him to a fight, and bringing his wife into it. All right, and I told Rappaport, I said, look, I don't think you're right. You were right for sharing private DMs. And he agreed. He said, I get where you're coming from on that. But the fact that KD brought his wife into it was just that just broke, the gloves were off after that. And you guys know this, all the men know, don't bring a man's wife, a man's mother, or a man's daughter into a conversation. Thankfully, KD did not insult his wife. But he did say his wife doesn't respect Rappaport anymore and, all that stuff. So that set Rapp off. Now, as far as KD, I reached out to KD, didn't hear back. But we have communicated DMs and all that, this season. And I brought it up to him. Why respond to these people? And he said, look, I like the back and forth. Now remember, Nick, he's younger than you even. He grew up with social media. He said, I love the back and forth, and I've got the time. So he doesn't think it's a big deal. Now, he's used this terrible language. It was private, and unfortunately, that's how some men talk privately. We all know that, locker room talk, all that stuff. But it really makes him look bad. And Nick, to your point, he keeps getting burned, right? You got the burner accounts. Now you've got this episode. You've had other episodes where social media keeps burning him, but he doesn't seem to want to back off from it because he likes doing it.
It is incomprehensible that this story exists for any other athlete of his stature. It seems like across the board in all of our major sports, KD's going to be a billionaire one day. He's one of the 15 greatest players in the history of the league. And he is younger than me, but he's a 32-year-old grown man. And at some point, you've got to grow up. And that's not me being unfair. That is what someone close to him should have told him a long time ago. You got to either delete the apps or grow up because they're not good for you, I would imagine, personally, mentally, and they're certainly not good for your brand, whatever that is at this point.
All right, we're going to shift back to football. The Patriots, they got a decision to make a quarterback. Which guy ends up under center? Week 1, toss that around. Next, first things first, back on the field.
I debuted this idea 5 years ago on your show when I was filling in for you once, but now that they've officially added a 17th game, I want to bring it back because I think there's a way for them to steal even more real estate. The 17th game should be for all teams an international game, and there should be an international week. So you have 8 home, 8 road, 1 neutral site game, and those games are played Monday through Sunday, 2 or 3 games a day, and depending on the time zone, if you have a game in Beijing, you would start around, I don't know what time it would start here, maybe 11 a.m. on the West Coast, whatever it is. You would have football all day, Monday through Sunday. You would add an extra bye week either before the game or after the game, depending on where it fell in the week. You could have a game in Cape Town, you could have a game in New Delhi, you could have a game in London, and for the NFL, would have games in prime time on in America for 7 straight days, and it would fix the little problem of, wait, I have 9 home games or 9 road games because of the uneven schedule. That's the next move. That's free advice to Commissioner Goodell and the folks on Park Avenue. Please pass it along to them, Colin, the next time you have coffee with them.
Oh, the
it's a great idea.
It's a great soul that would have to organize all that. There were months of organizing. It would stress me out. It was this great take. Just the person organizing. Let's talk some Patriots now. Yeah, they re-signed Cam Newton, but no, they are clearly not settled on a quarterback. How do I know? Well, Robert Kraft said as much yesterday. Said they got to get that position solidified. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Cam's just a fancy placeholder. Fox Bet Sportsbook still has him as the heavy favorite, followed by, get this, guys, Marcus Mariota, Jimmy G, and then the rookies, Mac Jones and Trey Lance. We got former head coach Eric Mangini joining the conversation now. But, Nick, I want to start with you. How do the Patriots best solidify their quarterback position moving forward?
I think they're in a really rough spot. I know that there is going to be a lot of speculation they'll trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, and I dismissed that a week ago. But then the day I dismissed it, the Niners traded 3 first-round picks for the 3rd pick of the draft. So obviously at some point, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be made available, and it's possible he goes back to New England. But, Coach, if they don't acquire Jimmy Garoppolo, am I nuts for saying it is incumbent on them to draft a quarterback this year? Because they just spent all that money. They obviously want to be back in the playoffs. So I know the 15th pick isn't a top 5 pick, but they hope it's the highest pick they have for the next 4 or 5 years. They clearly don't love Stidham. And Cam, I am as big of a Cam fan as you've ever met. And I'm anxious about Cam's right shoulder. So I imagine they are as well. Like, don't you feel like, I know in the draft you don't want to draft for need, you want to draft for value. But don't they have to try to come out of the first day of this draft with a quarterback to have a chance at not having the same situation they had last year?
Well, first of all, Nick, I have to say I love your take on the 17th game. I couldn't let that pass because I very rarely get a chance to say how much I love something that you say. But I love that idea. In terms of drafting a quarterback in the first round, I would say it's not going to happen. When you look at Bill's draft history, it's 25 years he's never drafted a quarterback in the first round. Now, I say that, and I was saying the same thing about wide receiver until they picked N'Keal Harry. So this is obviously a year where New England has broken trends and tendencies, so they could possibly go that direction. It's not like they haven't tried to address the quarterback over the last 20 years. They've drafted 11 quarterbacks in that 20-year period. The guys just haven't worked out. It's Rohan Davey, Cliff Kingsbury, Matt Castle, Kevin O'Connell, Zach Robinson, Ryan Mallett, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, Danny Eitling, Jarrett Stidham. So you go down this list and you say, okay, they're 1 for 11 and they hit in the 6th round, which is amazing with Tom Brady. It's really the equivalent of hitting a football lottery. So I don't know how much faith I have in the idea that they're going to hit if they move up to the first round or if they decide to get it in the first round.
Yeah. Well, look, Coach, if your guy is there, you take your guy. But the reality is they're in a tough position. And I may contradict myself from what we talked about yesterday, but you got 9 teams in the first round that could potentially take a quarterback. Jacksonville, New York, San Francisco, Atlanta, Miami, Detroit, Carolina, Philly, and Minnesota. So you got 9 teams ahead of you that might take your quarterback. There's 6 quarterbacks in this draft. You got Trevor Lawrence. We know where he's going. You got Justin Fields. You got Zach. You got Mac. You got Trey Lance, and then you got Kellen Mond out there who's creeping up the draft. He's the sleeper. But you're in a bad position. If I'm the Patriots, what I'm probably doing is I'm probably sitting tight in the first round if I don't move up. And then in the second round, I'll probably move up and go get a guy like Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond probably still there. This is a dude that can fit into your system right now. We're talking about a high IQ guy, a locker room guy, a guy who can make all the throws. And then you pair him with the Josh McDaniels and the Bill Belichick. And he loves tough coaching. I had him down here for 2 months, and I had Hugh Jackson with him. Hugh Jackson chewed him out every single day for no reason, just to make him tough, just to prepare him for the NFL. This dude is sensational. So I think the Patriots are in a tough spot. First round, it doesn't seem likely unless they move up, Wilds, that you guys are going to have a quarterback. So I think your play is going to be in the second round, and you got to keep your eyes on a guy like Kellen Mond.
Okay, you've sold me on Kellen Mond. I'm going to get a Kellen Mond, jersey to wear on the show wherever he gets drafted. So you've sold me. Great job, Brandon. Coach, I think The number one word that is defining the Patriots season this year is urgency. And that's why I think we're going to draft for need at 15 in the first round. I don't think we're looking to the future. Bill Belichick is not Sean McVay. He doesn't have another 30 years of coaching. We just saw Tom Brady win a Super Bowl. We know that the Bucs are coming into Gillette. I don't think we're going to spend the 15th pick on a project that someone can start in maybe 3 years, that he can sit and watch Cam. So I either think it's going to be Cam or Jimmy G, because I think the number one priority for the Patriots is to win right now.
But every year we talk about this quarterback's going to come in, and it's a once-in-a-generational talent, and you hear it over and over again. This guy's a sleeper. This guy's moving up the board. And every year, barely anybody hits. And then if they do hit, they typically don't have long-term success. So the idea that there's going to be that many quarterbacks available in the first round with franchise-type talent, it's unrealistic. Look, I'm excited to see what quarterback is worth 3 first-round draft picks at the number 3 spot where San Francisco moved up. So, yeah, there's a sense of urgency. Everybody wants to solve the quarterback problem, but it's not something that's easily solved. New England's tried to address it 11 different times over the last 20 years, and they haven't been able to address it successfully. So now suddenly they flip a switch and it's going to be fixed?
Well, let me address that 11 bites at the apple. Because all bites at the apple are not created equal. And I just want your thoughts on this, Coach. You would be idiotic, not you, the Patriots, would be idiotic to have ever spent a first-round pick on a quarterback while Tom Brady was there, right? Maybe at the very end you could have argued for it. I'm sure they would have rather drafted Lamar instead of Sony Michel when they drafted a couple picks ahead of him. But for the better part of 20 years, you don't spend a first-round pick when you've got the greatest quarterback ever, and even before he was the greatest quarterback ever, a great quarterback already there. And so their hit rate is going to be low because everyone's hit rate is low on drafting quarterbacks in the 4th round, in the 5th round, in the 6th round, as some of those guys were. I actually think, as far as Brissett and Garoppolo go, they got good value, maybe not for the Patriots, but good value as far as the quality of player given where they were taken in the draft. And so now, I think the wide receiver, never drafting a wide receiver in the 1st round until N'Keal Harry, was instructive because they needed a wide receiver for a lot of years and they still didn't do it. I feel like the quarterback thing is so tied to they had Tom Brady so they wouldn't, and I think their lack of success is tied to, well, they were drafting guys at 140 or at 96 instead of potentially at 15. Does that move you at all on your thoughts on whether or not they would be willing to spend the 15th pick on the quarterback?
Well, it's hard to argue that that's the solution when the quarterback, the greatest quarterback of all time, who they had, was drafted in the 6th round. And then you see guys like Russell Wilson, who was drafted, in the 3rd round, Dak Prescott, say what you want about him. He was another later round draft pick. So this idea that you have to get that guy in the 1st round, I don't think is necessarily true. It's trying to find the right guy for you. And whoever they get isn't going to come in and start right away. Cam is going to be the starter, and that guy is going to sit, and they're going to see how quickly he develops. I mean, look at Stidham. Robert Kraft said he didn't really feel like he has gotten a fair shot. So maybe they think that the young quarterback is still Jarrett Stidham, and you go get another guy to compete with him. But I don't think it's a lock that they're going to draft a quarterback in the 1st round, because that's the way you answer this question.
And, Coach, I want to go back to something you said earlier about, we keep talking about these guys being once-in-a-lifetime type talent, and we say it every single year, and these guys never pull through. So don't you think the problem is, we keep comparing these quarterbacks to Peyton Manning. We keep comparing them to Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. We're comparing them to the greats. That's what we're doing. So when you look at the quarterback position, we keep defining it as you have to be a quarterback nowadays. Our quarterbacks are throwing for 4,500 yards, 5,000 yards, and we're asking them to, be sensational there, when really you don't need Tom Brady. You don't need a Peyton Manning to win a Super Bowl. Tom Brady last year won the Super Bowl, but that's not Tom Brady in his prime. You go in Green Bay, you go out there and you throw 3 picks, you should have lost that game. Tom Brady had a great defense. You know, you look at a couple years ago, Nick Foles, yes, he was sensational, made some big plays, but if you put on the film, he's thrown into triple coverage. It was just these dudes just making plays left and right for this guy. So the thinking is, oh, let's compare him to the greats, but the reality is you don't need a great to actually win a Super Bowl. Do you think we are getting it wrong by comparing these quarterbacks coming in to the Tom Brady's of the world in their primes, the Peyton Mannings, the Aaron Rodgers?
No, I think if you're Robert Kraft and you're used to looking at Tom Brady, you're looking for another Tom Brady type. And we know that's unique, but you're looking for someone that can make you competitive every single year. And you brought up Nick Foles. That was a one-off. And now the head coach got fired. The quarterback they had drafted got fired. Nick Foles isn't there anymore. Yeah, you can win a one-off with an average quarterback if everything goes right. But if you want to be competitive year in and year out, you've got to get a quarterback that can put you in that category, and they're really, really hard to find.
Coach, good stuff. Thank you as always. We're going to stick with quarterback talk and welcome in Heisman winner Matt Leinart to break down all the signal callers in the NFL draft on the other side. This is First Things First. Back here, First Things First. Quarterback Mac Jones was nothing shy of great this past season at Alabama. Broke college football records for completion percentage and passing efficiency. But how much of that had to do with those weapons he had down there in Tuscaloosa? Not all that different from the situation Matt Leinart had at USC. Look at that, Reggie Bush among them. Matt joins us this morning. Matt, good morning. Thanks for being with us. How should we gauge Mac Jones' NFL pedigree, given that all the abundance of weapons he had there in Alabama?
Well, first of all, it's great to be on with you guys. Bright and early over here in Southern California, but
sure.
Yeah. Look, and by the way, I just heard Coach talk about snowing. It was 80 degrees here down in Manhattan Beach yesterday, so we'll be at the beach later on. Yeah, but no, I think it's sort of an unfair argument for Mac Jones. I mean, I think you criticize him for going to an elite school and being an elite player surrounded by elite talent. I don't think we should be able to fault him for that. I do understand when you have Devontae and you have Waddle and you have Najee Harris and you have these guys, and you saw the graphic, I had phenomenal players around me, and I'll always be the first to admit they made me better. But I'm a true believer in Mac Jones' talent. He's not going to wow you with the athleticism, which is another criticism that he's been getting here before the draft. But I think what it takes to be a successful quarterback, there's a lot of things in the NFL, and it's not just being able to run a 4.4. You don't have to be able to run a 4.4 in the NFL to be successful. What you have to be able to do is process information fast. You have to be able to get the ball out on time. You have to be accurate. You have to make great decisions. You have to be able to understand what defenses are doing to you and dissect them. And then most importantly, can you throw a deep ball accurately? He throws one of the best deep balls in college football. I know he was a little errant in his pro day the other day, but the film doesn't lie. And then also with pressure in his face. I know he had a great offense line, but there's a lot of times throughout the season where people are bringing pressure and bringing blitzes, and he gets the ball out quickly. So, look, he's not going to wow you with the measurables, but he wows you with the consistency you see on film. He did it week in and week out against the toughest competition in all of college football. And lastly, I would say about Mac Jones, and obviously I know Steve Sarkisian extremely well. He was my coach at USC, and he was Mac Jones' coach last year. I talked to him before the season, and I just said, hey, what do you like about Mac Jones? Remember, he was replacing Tua. He was fending off Bryce Young, the number one recruit in all of in high school football from my former high school, Mater Dei. And he said, he is the ultra competitor. And for me, that's one of the traits that you need to make it in the NFL, because a lot of these guys, they have talent, whether they can run fast, whether they can throw the football far. Do you have that competitive desire and passion to be great? And that was the first thing he said to me. He said, dude, Matt, this kid is so freaking competitive. He wants to win. He wants to be great. And listen, that's how he played last year. And I don't like the argument that he's surrounded by great players. I think he's a really talented football player. If he goes to the right organization, right coaching, like a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, I think he's going to have a tremendous career.
Well, hell, Patrick Mahomes is surrounded by great players. Aaron Rodgers, how many receivers has he had over the years? Please, miss me with that. The question for you, Matt, is this. Mac Jones, a lot of talk about him and the 49ers. Would the 49ers be making a mistake by taking him at the number 3 spot?
B. Marsh, that's a great question. I personally have Justin Fields as my second-rated quarterback, and I would slot him there. From everything I hear, and I'm sure you guys say the same, I know Kyle Shanahan is in love with Mac Jones, but we'll see what happens on Pro Day. That pick for me would be Justin Fields, because I believe Justin Fields expands that playbook. He takes you above the X's and O's with his ability to make plays. And I actually played in that offense. I played for Gary Kubiak in Houston, and actually spoke to Kyle. Kyle was trying to get me as a free agent over in the Redskins years ago. So I know that system extremely well. There's a lot of intricacies, a lot of nuances, but once you master it, obviously we know these types of quarterbacks can have tremendous success. Justin Fields, to me, would be a perfect fit in that system, with the way they run the bootlegs, with the way he likes to get his quarterbacks outside of the pocket. And with his arm strength and his ability, as you see these highlights, I mean, his ability just to make you miss, his athleticism, and the fact that he can throw the football from the pocket. I think he showed that last year in the Clemson game. To me, Justin Fields would be that pick, in my opinion. But listen, Mac Jones really fits the mold of kind of what Kyle likes in the quarterbacks, at least in the last handful of quarterbacks he's had with Kirk Cousins and Jimmy G. But remember, I would say this. Remember, he had RG3 years ago, and it was a dual-threat quarterback, and they made the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting. You trade the farm to get to that pick. You better hit that pick, or else that could set your coaching career, that could set your organization back years.
All right, Matt, I need you to help me with a problem I have. I watched a ton of Mac Jones. I watched a ton of Alabama. I watched the national championship game. I watched no Trey Lance games. He only played one game. It's not like I was watching North Dakota State games. But now, all of a sudden, come draft day, draft season, I'm like, whoo, Trey Lance, I don't know anything about him except these little highlights. He looks good. Do you think, and I think that I'm not the only one, I just feel like familiarity breeds contempt, but like familiarity breeds sort of like, I don't know, like we've lost the specialness of Mac Jones, and people are more interested in the unknown of what you can get with Trey Lance. So I guess my question is this. Do you think that Mac Jones has been almost overexposed, has been underrated at this point because we've seen so much of him?
I think it's because he went to Alabama. I mean, you look at it, and again, it's just the narrative that we're talking about with the great players there. And again, he's a one-year wonder, I guess you could say, but so is Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow at LSU, I know he started the year before, he had that terrific year, but listen, I mean, you throw on that tape and he's struggling all season long. They hired Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, and you look at Joe Burrow and the weapons he had with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. And we didn't really talk about that with Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow, God, if they could keep him upright in Cincinnati, I think he showed enough last year that he could be a special player. I think with Mac Jones, you just get tired of seeing Alabama. You get tired of Clemson. These teams are always on top every single year in college football. Actually, we talk about it all the time on our show is it good for college football when you have the same teams at the top? So I think in a way, people aren't excited about Mac Jones because he doesn't have the wow factor as far as maybe what Justin Fields has, even what Trevor Lawrence has and what Trevor Lawrence did from his true freshman year to last year. But you bring up Trey Lance, and I'm the same with Trey Lance. I mean, to me, Trey Lance is a project. I think he has tremendous talent and tremendous skill, but he's a kid who I think needs a handful of years to develop. This is a kid who played at a lower level, which, look, I don't knock him for that. I don't care. If you can play football, you can play football, but that's a big jump going from that to the NFL and trying to have success right away. And then the one game last year, I believe he was 15 of 30, in that game versus an inferior opponent. And I know COVID and I know all of that stuff, but still, if you're a top 5 pick, you kind of expect more. So, when you watch Trey Lance, I mean, the arm strength pops, the power in which he plays, he runs the football and throws. That's what has teams excited. But to me, Trey Lance is is a few years away. Trevor Lawrence, obviously, we know is extremely polished. I think Justin Fields, as I said, he's my quarterback too. Zach Wilson, to me, I love. I think people are in love with the pro day and enamored with just his unique ability to throw the football the way he did in that day, and that shows up on film as well too. But with these quarterbacks, guys, you have to be so in love with them to pick them in the top 5 and hope they are that franchise organization changing player. And you heard just Coach Mangini talk about it. It's very rare to find those guys, and there's a lot of talent in this draft. And B. Marsh, you mentioned Kellen Mond. I love Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond's a sleeper. I think he's a guy that's rising up the draft boards and has a chance to be a terrific pro as well.
We are all in on Kellen Mond here. All right, Matt, play a little drawing a blank with us now. Kyle Pitts lit it up down at Florida's Pro Day yesterday, ran a 4.44 in the 40-yard dash. Confident in what he can accomplish in the league. Very confident. Take a listen to this.
Started at a high level and keep increasing every year and being able to do other things that other tight ends aren't doing, which will make me special. So I feel like at the end of the day, with all the preparation and just through the years, I feel like I'll at the end be the best to ever do it.
Let's go.
The best to ever do it, Matt.
I love it.
All right, Pitt's saying he'll be the best to ever do it. Matt Leinart is blank.
Facts, man. I'm going to go facts. Why not? You got to have the confidence. You got to have the confidence to be great. This kid is special. He's a rare talent. He's an elite wide receiver and he's elite tight end. Obviously, the longevity, as we all know, B. Marsh, you got to be able to play for a long time to be the best ever. Right. But, man, I love it. I love the confidence. And I'll tell you what, he is going to be a matchup nightmare next year in the NFL.
Right, yeah, he is going to be a matchup nightmare, but man, there's some talent out there at the tight end position. There's some guys that did it for a very long time. So this is GOAT mentality. That's what I'm going with, because you got to have the confidence. You got to believe in yourself, Nick. And I love a kid standing on the table. Now you put that out, now you got to back it up.
Listen, I like the comment too. I just feel bad for him, Wilds, because he was too good in college in order to be drafted by the team he would have to be drafted by to be the GOAT tight end. Because who's the GOAT tight end? Tony Gonzalez. Patriots? Who do you go to? The Chiefs. Who's going to be the GOAT tight end? Travis Kelce. Who's he play for? The Chiefs. You want to be the GOAT tight end, there's only one organization in football where you can do it, the Chiefs. And I don't think he's going to fall to the 30s. So unfortunately for Kyle Pitts, there's a ceiling on what he can do. I know you're going to be, what about Rob Gronkowski? He's not going to be there for the Patriots either. And Gronk's a buck anyway. Took your take from you. Sorry, go ahead, Wild.
No. Well, no, we're gonna trade up. We're gonna Bill Belichick. It's better than 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends. Can't pass on the best tight end of all time. So Belichick, trade up. Jimmy G, make it a 49ers move somehow. Maybe that's what it is. Targeting number 3 pick. Move around.
I think he goes to Atlanta.
Matt, stick around. We got more to discuss. I want to get your take on what the Jets are planning to do at number 2 and with Sam Darnold. Matt Leinart back with us in a sec. First things first. Back here with Matt Leinart, got to talk about another former USC quarterback, Sam Darnold, and what his future holds here in New York. Jets, they got a decision to make at number 2. Do you keep Darnold and draft a quarterback? Do you trade him? Matt, as a fellow former USC star quarterback, should the Jets build around Sam or draft a quarterback second overall? We've been tossing it around the last couple of weeks. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference of what I think they should do, because in my opinion is not going to matter in this situation, as opposed to what they are going to do. I firmly believe they're going to draft a quarterback second overall, and they're going to trade Sam Darnold. I think that's what's going to happen. Now, I believe they should build around Sam Darnold, and I'm not saying that because I know the kid personally. He's a USC guy, but I do know firsthand, being in the NFL, being in environments that maybe you don't have the right players or the right coaching and all those things. And I just want to mention a couple of things. We've talked about this, and I know you guys have hit this ad nauseum, just the lack of supporting cast. This is a kid who hasn't been surrounded. I know, and B. Marsh, I know every player in the NFL is a good player. I understand that, but you got to have players around some of these quarterbacks to elevate their game. And I don't think he's had that in his career there. He hasn't. The Jets haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since UB Marsh and Eric Decker, I believe, in 2015. They haven't had a skill player make the Pro Bowl in the last 5 seasons. He's been sacked 30 or more times each of the past 3 years. So I don't want to make excuses because Sam can definitely play better. You know, I haven't watched enough tape on him in the NFL, but I do know that he can play better and he can throw the football better. He needs to stay healthy and all of those things. But when you have a supporting cast, obviously that's half the battle. And then really the Adam Gase effect. I mean, let's talk about Adam Gase for a second. Really, his whole tenure in New York was just bizarre, in my opinion, from afar. And you look at what Tannehill did with him in Miami. He was a good player.
Starting with the press conference, right?
Yeah, starting with the press conference and the wobbly eyes.
Got big.
And you look at what Tannehill's done. Tannehill's done in Tennessee, making 2 playoffs and playing as a Pro Bowler. So, coaching is important in the NFL, especially for a quarterback. Surrounding your young quarterback with good pieces, a good offensive line, is just as important. And now you have Robert Saleh, who was one of my coaches in Houston back in the day. He was young and fiery then. He's older and fiery now. I love that guy. I think he's going to turn that organization around. You have LaFleur that comes in, who's another Shanahan disciple, who's going to run the Shanahan system, which, to be honest, is what Sam Darnold would do best. And you have the number 2 pick in the draft where you can trade, you can build assets, you can get guys around them. So, look, that's what I think should happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but sometimes change is good for both parties. You know, for me in Arizona, obviously my career didn't go the way I wanted, but for me, change was great in Arizona. I went to Houston for Kubiak and just kind of saw football in a different light and was happy again. So sometimes that is great for all parties. But, man, I'll tell you what, people should not give up on Sam Darnold. I think he's got enough talent to be successful in this league.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And first, I got to stop killing Adam Gase. He was my wide receiver coach back in Denver. Josh McDaniels brought him in. I had a great time. but you don't have to give a disclaimer, Matt. You don't have to. You're right. Sam Darnold can absolutely ball. And where you're drafted and who the head coach is and the talent that surrounds you, who you take the field with, that matters. If I was drafted to the Miami Dolphins, I would have been in the Wildcat. There wouldn't have been 100 catch season 3 years in a row. Wouldn't have happened. I was drafted to coach Mike Shanahan's offense, to the Denver Broncos organization. I had Jay Cutler as my gunslinger. He was throwing it to me 170 times a year. And so I was in prime position to succeed. Sam Darnold hasn't. Kevin Wiles, you've been talking about him all week. You've been showing his highlights. The kid can absolutely sling it. The kid is a competitor. The kid is smart. He has it. But here's the truth of the matter. You're in the New York media. They haven't had a champion since dang on Joe Namath. They want a champion right now. They were excited to get the number 1 pick. And when they lost it, everybody was depleted. And then you look at the number 2 pick now, and you're looking at a Justin Fields sitting there, a guy who runs a 4.4 40 at the quarterback position. In today's football league, where we're asking a quarterback to run, we're asking a quarterback to get out of the pocket, we're asking a quarterback to be an athlete, and you have Mike LaFleur, passing game coordinator from San Francisco, and you pass on that kid? How do you do that? And he has the steel. He has everything you need, the metal in the New York market to be able to withstand that. He did it on the biggest stage in college, and now you go into the biggest market. That is your guy. You have to take Justin Fields. And Sam Darnold, I love Sam Darnold, but I think it's better for him in another situation, and he'll go thrive and he'll be fine.
Well, I think all of us are going to end up disappointed here because I think they're going to do none of the above. I think they're going to take Zach Wilson, and that's not to say Zach Wilson's not going to be good, but I agree with you, Brandon. I think Justin Fields would be the pick if I were running the team. I am happy that we have 2 of the remaining 20 people on earth who think Sam Darnold can be a great NFL quarterback on this show right now. We got 10% of the whole population sitting with us talking to us. I do understand he has had adverse circumstances. I think even in those adverse circumstances, he has been part of the reason that the Jets haven't been better. But I want to ask this question a little differently. Because if we were talking about who were the 5 best quarterbacks in football last year, and you go down the list, or the 10 best quarterbacks, how many of them are traditional drop-back pocket passers? Not many. Because Mahomes isn't. Aaron Rodgers is to a degree, but not quite. Russell Wilson isn't. Deshaun Watson isn't. Josh Allen isn't. Like Brady was, no doubt about it. Matt Ryan is, and he's not a top 10 quarterback anymore. Drew Brees was. Drew Brees now retired. And I do wonder how much the game-changing wilds is going to affect this year's draft and is going to affect Sam Darnold, because what was once upon a time the position played the way, to be totally candid, Matt played it, which was drop back, scan the field, play traditional quarterback. That used to be the only way you could be a first-round pick, was play it that way. Vic was like the only guy who broke that mold. Now, how many of our best quarterbacks in football don't threaten you with their legs? Not many. And so I do think that has to work into the equation when the Jets decide what they want to do, which is why I think a lot of us are so high on Justin Fields. And I think it's going to work into the equation over whether or not Sam Darnold is successful, is that the position is changing in a way and it's changing rapidly that might be moving away a bit from the traditional drop-back Tom Brady style passer.
So I'll build on that, Matt. Do you think, but I'm going to change it a little bit. I actually think the pendulum might move back a little bit. When we saw Mahomes get injured, and you're like, uh-oh, that's like, we don't want him. Like, I think you want Mahomes in the pocket more. What do we say about Lamar? I wish Lamar would run less now. They got to give him more weapons, stay in the pocket. So while I think it was sort of pocket passer over here, now we want sort of more dynamic quarterbacks. I actually think now you want a dynamic quarterback that will be more conservative and stay in the pocket more, just because it's such an injury risk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. Listen, I don't think you have to be a 4-4 guy to make it in the NFL. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, look at, and again, those are the GOATs, but you have to be able to move enough in the pocket and outside of the pocket, a la Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers is a great athlete, but he doesn't want to take off and run. He'll take off and run when he has to. You have to be able to move around in the pocket and make enough plays. And that's where I disagree. I think Sam Darnold has that ability. If you go back to his USC days, look at the ability of him to be mobile and make plays outside the pocket. The problem is he has no offensive line in New York and a terrible system where he was running for his life. And again, he has to play better. And I think that's why he gets a shot somewhere else. Maybe he sits for a year, learns behind an established guy, and then gets a chance to kind of reinvent himself. But the game is changing, and it's starting at a younger level from high school all the way through college, where these quarterbacks are just becoming better athletes. Way better than I was.
Nick, hey, listen to this, Matt, Nick. If the Jets don't take Justin Fields at number 2, I'm retiring again. They better take Justin Fields at 2.
Well, you better retire
Brandon,
again,
I'm not sure that's
going to
happen.
Fields.
I don't think they are.
Matt,
please
Leinart,
come back, man.
Thank you.
Matt was great.
This was great.
Yeah,
really
guys,
good insight.
guys.
Much appreciated. Time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. The Seahawks showing up their offense yesterday, now with more O-line help for Russ. Don't be ridiculous. They instead extended wide receiver Tyler Lockett, 4 years, $69 million. Hey, Lockett's been one of Russ's top targets the last couple of years. I know it, you know it, Russ knows it. Russ took to Twitter with this: homie, let's go, you deserve it. All you, bro. So, Brandon, we've heard Russ cheerlead all offseason, but should he be enthusiastic for this upcoming Seahawks season?
Absolutely. And then players need to take note how Russell Wilson did it. We know Russell to be a classy guy. He does everything right, it feels like. Look, he loves Seattle. He's done a lot in that community. But this came down to Russell Wilson wanting to be in the best position to win. And Pete Carroll didn't want to listen. So he had to go public. He went public, now they sat at the table, and now they're having the discussions that they need to get on the same page. So, of course, Russell Wilson's going to go out there and cheer on his guys because that's who Russell Wilson is. This is not about really Russell Wilson. It's more so about Pete Carroll going into his 48th year of coaching. He's 69 years old. I don't see him slowing down, but he's 69, Nick. He won 2 national championships. He won a Super Bowl 48 in fashion. And now if you want to win another one, you have to give Russell Wilson all the pots, all the pans, all the skillets, all the utensils in the kitchen and let him cook. Richard Sherman, he may walk back in, but Richard Sherman is not the Richard Sherman from the Legion of Boom. You're not getting Earl Thompson back, Thomas back. The last time he was there, he got hurt and he flicked you off in front of everybody. 70,000 cheering fans, a couple million people viewing live. So for Pete Carroll to sit down and say, you know what, I'm willing to do things differently, I think that's special. And now we're going to see a Seattle Seahawks team do some things they've never done in the past on the defensive side, and then also finally let Russ cook for the better or the worse.
Brandon, I got to put you on the spot here. I apologize. I just have to ask you this. Do you know something that I don't know? Do you know that they have sat down and that Pete Carroll has said, yes, Russ, you win? Russ, I'm going to do what you want? Has that happened?
Remember, I said this 2 weeks ago, buddy. You know I'm not good at being, an insider and breaking news. I'm not damn Adam Schefter, but I do know a few people. I called around and I said, what is going on? Why would Pete Carroll turn down the bag from the Chicago Bears? And they said they are finally understanding that they have the winningest quarterback through 9 years. It will be a sad day in Seattle sports history if they don't listen to Russell Wilson. They are realizing that. So, yes, I know a little something.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that the reason I ask is I don't look at re-signing a player who was already under contract as them getting, to continue the let Russ cook analogy, a brand new air fryer. I look at it as they just washed the one they already had. And they're like, hey, Russ, remember this? You don't use this enough. We got it for you a few years ago. And so to me, this offseason, I do think that as far as what the Seattle's moves have been, have shown that they're like, okay, Russ, we understand you're frustrated. We'll trade for Gabe Jackson, but we're not going to overhaul how we do business. And I also do wonder if part of when they sat down after they turned down that deal from Chicago, if part of the communication to Russ was, hey, man, I know you don't think it's perfect here, but have you thought about what it would be like even if you got traded to one of your preferred destinations? Dallas, I think, would have been great for him, but that was also the least likely Wilds of all of them. They would have had to trade Dak. The Saints have no cap space, and if they trade for us, they have no draft picks either. So that team just is what it is, an aging team on the defensive side that has mortgaged their future for the end of the Drew Brees run. The Bears, I understand Brandon loves Chicago, and I know it's got a great history. The Bears aren't, to me, a quarterback's dream. It's not like, man, I'd love to play for Andy Reid with the Chiefs' weapons. Right. That's first option. Second option is Soldier Field, Allen Robinson, and what else? That's not what I've ever heard. And then the Raiders, they've had one winning season in almost 20 years. So I do think maybe that Russ also, while the Seahawks realized what they had in Russ, I do think it's possible, Wilds, that Russ realized, I guess it could be worse. If those were my four choices, which of them put me in a better position to win once they give up what they'd have to give up to get me, rather than just staying where I'm at?
Okay, well, and real quick, Jenna, I know we got to move on to Brandon's pro day. Hey, quick tease. If Russ is 100% committed back to Seattle, Brandon, I would like him to go and put out some sort of statement so we can stop talking about it. Because he started a little fire and it was burning. He started to throw some stuff on. It's it's all right, but it's still simmering. I want him to go and stamp out the fire completely. Because until I see him go on a radio show or do a Players Tribune article or whatever, I need him to do something for real so we can stop talking about it. Because it's still a simmering fire that I feel like could blow up at any point.
No, it's fresh. Forget my pro day. We'll do the pro day. We'll do the pro day tomorrow. This is more important.
No, we do pro day.
Here's the deal.
You look wonderful.
No, here's the deal. Here's the deal, Wilds. It's so fresh. It's so fresh. Look, this was just a couple weeks ago where Chicago sent in their offer and then Pete Carroll turned it down. They still got to talk about what moves are they going to make through the draft to bolster that offensive line. Okay, I still think they have an opportunity to add another skill position. No, it's not a problem. They're talking. You know what it is. Right. They know. They've been together for 9 years. Man, I was in that locker room. Their relationship is exceptional. He is an extension of Pete Carroll in that locker room. That's why it was idiotic for this not to work out and for Pete Carroll to say, you know what? I'm going to stick with what I believe. And now they're finally sitting there saying, like, our only way is through this dude. I don't know who he is, the masked Nick. Who do you call this dude? What do he have on his face right now, Russell Wilson?
He's got it on the Bane.
What is he doing? That's their only way to win is through Bane.
Yeah, you got to go through Bane. Everybody knows this. It's not a good stuff.
We got to go. Undisputed starts right now. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Oh.